Hello and welcome to our daily sketching routine. It is Monday, November 18th, 2024, and today's topic will be reworking sketches. And before we begin, welcome back. If you're returning, welcome. If you're new, and I sketch and post every day, and I use timers, usually 5 minutes, which is what I'll do today. And so I started a 5-minute timer if you just want to use these videos as a way to build a daily sketching habit for 5 minutes, which sometimes is the best way to build the habit. But I mainly use it to stay focused and to know how long these videos are. But yeah, just to get started, this is a continuation of yesterday's video, which I tend to do. I mean, if it makes sense, if that's the main feeling that I have. So for example, I reworked this. That's why I'm going to call it Reworking Sketches. So if you look at yesterday's video, I basically went through how to simplify like reference for when you're sketching, which is kind of how to change it to go with what you're doing and to change it up, which is a good idea. Although, if you're doing studies, I mean, it's good to also study the details and everything. But basically, all of this was from yesterday, but then this is the reworked part. And just to begin with, I'll kind of talk about that. So after yesterday's video, so what I usually do is later on, I'll go back and add more details or like work on it if I feel inspired to do that. And even in yesterday's video, I was talking about how I kind of reworked it. And yeah, that's just what happens, especially if you're working with pen and ink. And then it just got to the point where I had to rework it. It was overworked, and then I had to rework it, which is more than overworked. So one thing that I can do is go over like how I reworked it. So one, I've been using these Sharpie creative markers, which are basically acrylic markers. I think they're cheaper than the more expensive stuff that a lot of people use, but they work for me, so I'm cool with that. So a few things that was going through my mind, like one, when I was working on basically what was in yesterday's video, like I basically just changed it all up. I painted it, that's the thing. So this is the first time I used these markers on this sketch page. And well, actually, I take that back. So I pretty much used like felt tip colored markers, and then I had to go in with some of the white, like this one, to kind of fix that. And I didn't like that because I really don't like to overwork things. I really don't like to have to rework things, but it just comes with the territory. So that's what I did there, and it doesn't look terrible. I mean, it's okay, but like I know that I had to, but I mean, it looks okay. So I didn't really want to use these markers, is what I'm saying, mainly because I wasn't sure what it was going to look like, because I don't like it to look like too chaotic, although I think my sketch pages tend to be kind of chaotic. Or there is a method to the madness, but maybe it only makes sense to me. I don't know. But yeah, I had to do it here because once it just gets too overworked with ink, there's nothing you can do. So I went in with white, and I just did that. And then so I bought a set, and it has gray and black and other colors, but that's all I use for this. So that's basically what I did, was just went with like monochromatic to, I basically had to just draw a different character because well, I overworked the previous one, and then when you redo it, you don't really want to draw the same thing because you kind of have to like get a whole new perspective. And it actually took me a couple hours to get here, and I worked on it a little bit this morning because it just got to the point where, so that's 5 minutes, I'll start another one, where I wasn't sure like what to think about it. And so I kept having to make adjustments. And so I thought maybe today, I mean, I'm okay with it right now. I'm going to leave it because, again, the overwork thing, that's what happens is as you're working on it, and then it gets to a point where you think, okay, that looks pretty good. But then you do one little thing and it just throws off the whole sketch, and you have to keep going with it. And then yeah, it's overworked at that point. So I'm going to leave it because I don't want to overwork it. And yeah, I just turned it into my OC. But speaking of that, since now I'm going in this direction, I kind of want to just turn the whole page into kind of like a mood board. So that's an idea. If you can do that, if you have a story, you can kind of turn the whole page into a mood board. But just to kind of finish out this video, I mainly wanted to talk about that, and of course do the daily sketching, or just to do the sketching for today's video. I can use this because I didn't really want to use it for the rest of it, and some of it I actually want to keep like black and white, like just as a sketch. But maybe in this corner I can kind of do this, and you can actually layer, you can add more color. So they're pretty fun. I like them. I could see how I could use it for like a comic or something. But just to kind of demonstrate sort of, so you have these, which you can get pretty good detail, like, but I mean, it's brush, so so I like to separate them as far as like there's black, and then there's gray, and then there's white. Now with this one, I wasn't as methodical because I was still figuring out how it worked, like how I would work with this medium. So it'd be good to get like a gray, like I have this gray felt tip, so like a smaller point, and then black, and then keep them apart so it's easier. And then I have like this really fine point black, and you really shouldn't have to use the white marker too much. But yeah, I'll do this. So as I do that, I'll demonstrate these tools, but I'll also kind of talk about kind of an extension of yesterday's video, which is I'm not going to use reference, but I did use it to like sketch this out, and I changed it quite a bit. And then of course this one is like totally redone. But like this, I don't have reference for it, but I did use reference to get this far. And so I'll kind of talk about how to not have reference and then like paint it. And so that's kind of, I kind of like these because it allows me to sort of go over like painting. It's not a bad way to get into it, because it allows me to sort of show like some ideas about painting. So for example, the gray, that's your midtone, so it's kind of a way to adjust. So as I'm looking at like this sketch, I can go ahead and adjust some things. And so as I do that, so yeah, like you can pick something. Well, what's cool about paint is, of course, you can paint on top of it. So that's kind of nice because, like with this, I painted on top of that like over and over. But I mean, if you can be methodical about it, that's cool too. So one thing is, as you go to refine, like the sketch here, you're also thinking about like the final, like painting, the final layers of it. So I'm going to use this gray as kind of the mid-tone. And you also want to think about like, so the other thing is, when you're doing pen and ink, you kind of have to think about the highlights, and that's kind of what the overwork is. So if you were to ink over, so this is kind of a mix. Like even here you can see that I'm still doing like pen and ink techniques. In fact, I want to add more, and plus this ink does react differently on that acrylic marker. So that's another 5 minutes. I'll start one more. But yeah, when you're doing pen and ink, once you go over a highlight, if you do it too much, then it throws off like the picture. It throws off the values, it throws off the forms, and that's really like what the overwork means. You overworked it, you sketched over it. However, with paint, you know that you can like go, well, that's gray. Yeah, it's important to keep these separated where it's more convenient. But yeah, if you're using paint, you know that you can do this, but like, since it is a sketchbook page, I'd prefer not to have to do that. But I mean, if you have to, but you have to kind of layer it, because the first layer will be kind of gray, and then you have to like, it's just kind of an interesting effect, basically. So yeah, you can use gray to get your midtones going, and also to fix the sketch. Now, I did mention yesterday how you could do a sketch like this just from reference, and kind of do what I'm doing here, where you could paint. So this is also a good study for like a bigger painting, because it's the same difference. As long as you understand your method, your methodology, like how you did it, you could replicate it. So for example, if like if I lighten these values for the sales, so notice that I'm still keeping the drawing there. I'm not gonna draw over it. So it's a mixture of the reference for this ship, but then also incorporating it into this. It's starting to turn into a story, like a mood board. So you can see that you can kind of get some nice painterly effects. And because it is on paper, I'm going to leave like the white of the paper, because that's going to be the whitest part. It's different if you're using like oil paint or something, or acrylic. So this is just an example. I'd said yesterday, I like to push. Like, I don't like to play it safe, because sometimes you come up with, like, this taught me a lot, and I think it's a nice little portrait of my OC. So yeah, from here, like, you may not even do like a whole lot. You may not need like the white, but for this does, it does stand out, like this black ink here. So you might want to just accentuate some of it, because like it does, it's pretty bold. So yeah, you might want to just use it to kind of accentuate the certain areas, like that. But just remember the overwork. Like, that's a real thing. Like, for example, if it starts to look good, it's better to leave it. I think I was just trying to fix yesterday's sketch, and that's kind of the problem. It's whenever you're trying too hard. The other thing I wanted to show was you can use these, like the smaller markers. So once it dries, so that's the other thing too, like right now it's probably a little damp, but once it's actually dry, you can draw over it. But then it does look different. Like, it depends on which ink you use, which pen. Like, when I do that, it may start to fade, which isn't terrible. That's another 5 minutes. I'll wrap this up. It'll be about 20 minutes. So yeah, one more. So the other thing is, once you go over it, you can still get this kind of look. So you can still sketch over it, and of course you can use different colors. I'm gonna play around with it some more. I mean, I already have. I like it, because even if I were using the more expensive brands, I mean, I would still do this kind of thing. I never use it exactly how you're supposed to. I always come up with my own way, but you can see how that works. And if you want to add some highlights, you can use, it says you don't have to shake these, but I tend to sometimes. So from here you can pick maybe some light, like that, and that's coming off of, like, because there was highlights on these waves. If you want to maybe darken some areas, you might want to keep in mind the like use a finer point. It's something to experiment with. I like it though. Also, I don't really know what a ship is supposed to look like, so I'm just gonna kind of use this gray to keep sketching it. And I might want to, again, not overwork it so that I can look up what a ship looks like, and but then that's how I would make adjustments, and just keep using these smaller pens to kind of adjust. You can also use, like, there's gray, so you can adjust some of the like the gray parts, but yeah, it's still gray, but it's like a little bit darker. So yeah, it's just kind of an interesting technique, but it's good to do. It's helpful for studies, because once you do this, you can kind of do a bigger painting of that if you want it, without having to like bust out with like the painting or the paints and or like a canvas or something. So you can do like blending. But yeah, I would look up a ship. Well, it's not too bad for a sketch and for not knowing what it looks like. So it's just some ideas. One, I didn't want this whole page to be painted up this way. I like sort of this these little vignettes, and like I could do a painting here. I thought that could be cool, but like with different colors, because they do come in different colors. But yeah, that's a way to incorporate reference and stylize it enough and make it go towards your own ideas. Also, reworking how that works. Like as I close out the video, yeah, it's sometimes like I was obsessed with working on this, and I basically had to redo it, and it turned out okay. And so sometimes that's how it is. Like you just have to keep at it. And yeah, as I end this video, I want to thank you for joining me for today's daily sketch routine. And if you like these videos, please support the channel. We're almost at 2,000, and really am excited and appreciate that. And until next time, keep on sketching.